Crito by Plato. Introduction. Crito by Plato is a philosophical dialogue between Socrates and his friend Crito. The dialogue revolves around the aftermath of Socrates' trial and impending execution. Crito urges Socrates to escape from prison, offering various reasons and arguments. However, Socrates engages in a discussion that explores the moral and ethical implications of escaping, ultimately concluding that he must abide by the laws of the state, even if they lead to his death. The dialogue delves into themes of justice, duty, and the relationship between the individual and the state. Scene: the prison of Socrates.
Why have you come at this hour, Crito? It must be quite early.
Yes, certainly.
What is the exact time?
The dawn is breaking.
I wonder why the prison keeper allowed you in.
He knows me because I often come, Socrates. Besides, I have done him a favor.
And have you just arrived?
No, I came some time ago.
Then why did you sit in silence instead of waking me up immediately?
I did not want to disturb you, Socrates. I have been amazed by your peaceful sleep, especially considering the trouble and distress you are in. I have always thought of you as a happy person, but I have never seen anyone handle such a calamity with such ease and tranquility.
Well, Crito, at my age, a man should not complain about the approach of death.
Yet there are other old men who find themselves in similar misfortunes and still complain despite their age.
That is true. But you have not told me why you came so early.
I came to bring you a sad and painful message, not just for you, but for all of us who are your friends. It is especially painful for me.
What is it? Has the ship arrived from Delos, the one on which I am supposed to die?
No, the ship has not arrived yet, but it will probably be here today. People who have come from Sunium tell me that they left the ship there. Therefore, tomorrow will be your last day, Socrates.
Very well, Crito. If that is God's will, I am willing. But I believe there will be a delay of one day.
Why do you think so?
I will tell you. Am I supposed to die on the day after the ship arrives?
Yes, that is what the authorities say.
But I do not think the ship will be here until tomorrow. I came to this conclusion based on a vision I had last night, or rather just now, when you kindly allowed me to sleep.
What was the nature of the vision?
I saw the likeness of a woman, fair and beautiful, dressed in bright clothes. She called out to me and said, "O Socrates, the third day hence to fertile Phthia shalt thou go." Homer, Illinois.
What a strange dream, Socrates.
There is no doubt about its meaning, Crito, I believe.
Yes, the meaning is clear. But oh, my beloved Socrates, let me once again beg you to take my advice and escape. If you die, I will not only lose a friend who cannot be replaced, but there is another evil. People who do not know you and me will believe that I could have saved you if I had been willing to pay, but that I did not care. Can there be a greater disgrace than this? To be thought of as valuing money more than the life of a friend? The majority will not be convinced that I wanted you to escape and that you refused.
But why, my dear Crito, should we care about the opinion of the majority? Good men, who are the only one is worth considering, will understand the truth of what happened.
But you see, Socrates, we must consider the opinion of the majority. What is happening now shows that they can cause great harm to anyone who has lost their favor.
I wish it were true, Crito. If the majority could cause the greatest harm, then they would also be capable of doing the greatest good. What a wonderful thing that would be. But they can do neither. They cannot make a person wise or foolish, and whatever they do is simply a matter of chance.
Well, I will not argue with you. But please tell me, Socrates, are you not acting out of concern for me and your other friends? Are you not afraid that if you escape from prison, we might get into trouble with the informers for helping you flee and lose either all or a significant portion of our property? Or that an even worse evil might befall us? If you are worried about us, please be assured that we should be willing to take this risk, or even a greater one, to save you. Please, be persuaded and do as I say.
Yes, Crito, which is one fear you mentioned, but not the only one.
Don't worry, there are willing to help you escape from prison without much cost. And as for the informers, they do not ask for much money either. I have more than enough money to help you, and if you do not want to use all of mine, there are strangers who will lend you theirs. Simmias the Theban, for example, has brought a large sum of money specifically for this purpose. Cebes and many others are also prepared to spend their money to assist you in escaping. So, do not hesitate on our account, and do not say, as you did in court, that you will have difficulty knowing what to do elsewhere. People will love you in other places, not just in Athens. I have friends in Thessaly, for instance, who will value and protect you, and no one in Thessaly will bother you. I do not think you are justified, Socrates, in sacrificing your own life when you could be saved. By doing so, you are playing into the hands of your enemies who want to destroy you. Furthermore, you are abandoning your own children. You could raise and educate them, but instead, you are leaving them behind to fend for themselves. If they do not suffer the fate of orphans, it will not be thanks to you. No one should bring children into the world if they are unwilling to take care of them until the end. But it seems like you are choosing the easier path, not the better and more honorable one, which would be more fitting for someone who claims to value virtue in all their actions, like yourself. I am ashamed not only of you, but also of us, your friends, when this whole situation is a result of our lack of courage. The trial never had to happen, or it could have been handled differently. This final act, or foolishness, will be seen as our negligence and cowardice. We could have saved you if we were worth anything, and you could have saved yourself because there was no real difficulty. Look at how sad and disgraceful the consequences are for both us and you. So, make up your mind, or rather, have your mind already made up. The time for deliberation is over, and there is only one thing to be done, which must be done tonight. If we delay any longer, it will not be possible. I beg you, Socrates, be persuaded by me and do as I say.
Dear Crito, your enthusiasm is valuable if it is well-founded. But if it is misguided, the greater the enthusiasm, the greater the danger. Therefore, we must consider whether I should do as you say or not. I have always been one of those individuals who must be guided by reason, no matter what that reason may be if it appears to be the best upon reflection. Now that this opportunity has presented itself, I cannot go against my own words. I still honor the principles I have always honored, and unless we can immediately find other and better principles, I am certain not to agree with you. Not even if the power of the majority could inflict more imprisonments, confiscations, and deaths, scaring us like children with imaginary terrors. What is the fairest way to consider the question? Should I return to your old argument about the opinions of men? We were saying that some opinions should be respected while others should not. Were we right in maintaining this before I was condemned? And has the argument, which was once valid, now become mere talk for the sake of talking, childish nonsense? That is what I want to consider with your help, Crito. Is the argument in any way different now, given my current circumstances? Should I accept or reject it? This argument, which, I believe, is supported by many authoritative individuals, states that the opinions of some men should be valued while the opinions of others should not. Now, Crito, you are not going to die tomorrow. At least, there is no human probability of this happening. Therefore, you are unbiased and not influenced by the circumstances in which you find yourself. Tell me, then, if I am right in saying that some opinions, and only the opinions of certain individuals, should be valued, while other opinions, and the opinions of other individuals, should not be valued. Did I argue correctly?
Certainly.
The good opinions should be respected, not the bad ones?
Yes.
And the opinions of the wise are good, while the opinions of the unwise are bad.
Certainly.
And what was said about another matter? Should the student who dedicates themselves to the practice of gymnastics pay attention to the praise and criticism and opinions of every person or only one person, such as their physician or trainer?
Only one person.
And they should fear the criticism and welcome the praise of that one person only, not of many?
Clearly.
And they should act, train, eat, and drink in the way that seems good to their single master, who is understanding, rather than according to the opinion of all other people combined.
True.
And if he disobeys and disregards the opinion and approval of the one, and regards the opinion of the many who have no understanding, will he not suffer harm?
Certainly he will.
And what harm will it be, Where will it lead, and what will it affect the disobedient person?
Clearly, it will affect the body, that is what is destroyed by the harm.
Very good, and is not this true, Crito, of other things which we do not need to separately list? In matters of justice and injustice, fairness and unfairness, good and evil, which are the subjects of our current discussion, should we follow the opinion of the majority and fear them? Or should we fear and respect the opinion of the one person who understands? Shouldn't we respect and revere him more than anyone else in the world? And if we abandon him, won't we destroy and harm that part of us which is assumed to be improved by justice and worsened by injustice? Such a part exists, right?
Certainly, Socrates.
Let us consider a parallel example. If, following the advice of those who lack understanding, we destroy something that is improved by health and worsened by disease, would life be worth living? And that which has been destroyed is the body, correct?
Yes.
Could we live with a sick and corrupted body?
Certainly not.
And would life be worth living if that higher part of man, which is improved by justice and corrupted by injustice, is destroyed? Do we think that principle, whatever it may be in man, which deals with justice and injustice, is inferior to the body?
Certainly not.
More honorable than the body?
Far more.
Then, my friend, we must not pay attention to what the majority say about us, but to what he, the one person who understands justice and injustice, will say, and what the truth will say. Therefore, you are mistaken when you advise that we should consider the opinion of the majority about justice and injustice, good and evil, honorable and dishonorable. Well, someone might say, but the majority can kill us.
Yes, Socrates, which will clearly be the response.
And it is true, but I find it surprising that the old argument remains unshaken as ever. And I would like to know if I can say the same about another proposition, that not life, but a good life, is to be valued above all else?
Yes, that also remains unshaken.
And a good life is equivalent to a just and honorable one that still holds, right?
Yes, it does.
Based on these premises, I will now argue whether I should or should not try to escape without the consent of the Athenians. If I am right in escaping, then I will make the attempt. But if not, I will refrain. The other considerations you mentioned, such as money, reputation, and the duty to educate one's children, I fear, are only the beliefs of the majority, who would be just as willing to bring people back to life if they could, as they are to put them to death, and for equally little reason. But now, since the argument has prevailed thus far, the only question left to consider is whether we would be doing the right thing by escaping or allowing others to help us escape and paying them in money and gratitude, or if we would not be doing the right thing. And if the latter is true, then death or any other calamity that may come from staying here should not be considered.
You are right, Socrates. So, how should we proceed?
Let us consider the matter together, and if you can refute me, then do so, and I will be convinced. Or else, my dear friend, please stop trying to persuade me to escape against the wishes of the Athenians. I appreciate your efforts, but I cannot be persuaded against my own better judgment. Now, please consider my first point and try to respond.
I will.
Are we to say that we should never intentionally do wrong? Or that in some cases we should do wrong and in others we should not? Or is doing wrong always evil and dishonorable, as I was saying earlier, and as we have already acknowledged? Are we throwing away all our previous admissions that we made just a few days ago? Have we, at our age, been discussing with each other all our lives only to discover that we are no better than children? Or, despite the opinion of the majority, and regardless of whether the consequences are better or worse, shall we insist on the truth of what was said before, that injustice is always evil and dishonor to the one who acts unjustly? Should we say that or not?
Yes.
Then we must not do wrong?
Certainly not.
Nor should we retaliate or seek revenge, as many believe, for we must not harm anyone at all. Compare Republic.
Clearly not.
Again, Crito, can we do evil?
Surely not, Socrates.
And what about doing evil in return for evil, which is the morality of the many, is that just or not?
Not just.
For doing evil to another is the same as harming him?
Very true.
Then we should not retaliate or harm anyone, regardless of whatever harm we may have suffered from them. But I want you to consider, Crito, whether you truly mean what you are saying. Because this opinion has never been held, and never will be held, by a significant number of people. And those who agree and those who disagree on this point have no common ground and can only despise one another when they see how much they differ. Tell me, then, whether you agree with and assent to my first principle, that neither harm nor retaliation nor defending against evil with evil is ever right. And shall that be the premise of our argument? Or do you decline and dissent from this? For so I have always thought, and continue to think, but, if you have a different opinion, let me hear what you have to say. If, however, you still hold the same view as before, I will proceed to the next step.
You may proceed, for I have not changed my mind.
Then I will move on to the next point, which can be framed as a question: should a person do what they admit being right, or should they betray what is right?
They should do what they believe is right.
But if this is true, what is the application? In leaving the prison against the will of the Athenians, am I wronging anyone? Or rather, am I not wronging those whom I should least wrong? Am I not abandoning the principles that we agreed were just? What do you say?
I cannot tell, Socrates, for I do not know.
Then consider the matter in this way: imagine that I am about to play truant. You may call the proceeding by any name you like, and the laws and the government come and interrogate me. Tell us, Socrates, they say, what are you doing? Are you not, by your actions, attempting to overthrow us, the laws, and the entire state, as much as you can? Do you believe that a state can exist and not be overthrown when the decisions of law have no power and are disregarded by individuals? What will be our response, Crito, to these and similar words? Anyone, especially a rhetorician, will have a lot to say in defense of the law that requires a sentence to be carried out. They will argue that this law should not be set aside. And shall we reply, yes, but the state has wronged us and given an unjust sentence? Suppose I say that?
Very well, Socrates.
And was that our agreement with you? The law would answer. Or were you supposed to abide by the sentence of the state? And if I were to express my astonishment at their words, the law would probably add, answer, Socrates, instead of opening your eyes, you are in the habit of asking and answering questions. Tell us, what complaint do you have against us that justifies your attempt to destroy us and the state? First, did we not bring you into existence? Your father married your mother with our assistance, and you were born. Do you have any objection to raise against those of us who regulate marriage? None, I should reply. Or against those of us who, after birth, regulate the upbringing and education of children in which you were also raised. We are not the laws, which are responsible for education, right in commanding your father to train you in music and physical education. Right, I should reply. Well then, since we brought you into the world and nurtured and educated you, can you deny that you are our child and servant, just as your fathers were before you? And if this is true, you are not on equal terms with us, nor can you believe that you have the right to do to us what we are doing to you. Would you have the right to strike or insult or do any other harm to your father or your master, if you had one, because you had been struck or insulted by him, or received some other harm from him? You would not say this? And because we believe it is right to destroy you, do you think that you have the right to destroy us in return, and your country as much as you can? Will you, O professor of true virtue, pretend that you are justified in this? Has a philosopher like you failed to discover that our country is more valuable, higher, and holier than mother or father or any ancestor, and more deserving of respect in the eyes of the gods and of wise men? Should it not be soothed and treated with gentleness and reverence when angry, even more than a father, and either persuaded, or if not persuaded, obeyed? And when we are punished by her, whether with imprisonment or beatings, the punishment is to be endured in silence, and if she leads us to wounds or death in battle, we follow willingly. No one may yield or retreat or leave their position, but whether in battle or in a court of law, or in any other place, they must do what their city and their country order them, or they must change their view of what is just, and if they may not harm their father or mother, much less may they harm their country. What answer shall we give to this, Crito? Do the laws speak true, or do they not?
They do.
Then the laws will say, Consider, Socrates, if we are speaking truly, that in your current attempt you are going to harm us. For, having brought you into the world, and nurtured and educated you, and given you and every other citizen a share in every good thing we had to offer, we further declare to any Athenian, by the freedom which we grant them, that if they do not like us when they have reached adulthood and have seen the ways of the city, and have become acquainted with us, they may go wherever they please and take their possessions with them. None of our laws will prohibit or interfere with him. Anyone who dislikes us in the city and wants to emigrate to a colony or another city, can go wherever they please while keeping their property. However, someone who has experienced how we administer justice and govern the state, and still chooses to stay, has entered into an implied agreement to obey our commands. If they disobey us, they are, as we argue, thrice in the wrong. First, because by disobeying us, they disobey their parents. Second, because we are responsible for their education. Third, because they have made an agreement with us to obey our commands, and they neither obey them nor convince us that our commands are unjust. We do not force our commands upon them, but instead give them the choice to obey or convince us otherwise. That is what we offer, and they do neither. These are the kind of accusations that, as we mentioned, you, Socrates, will face if you carry out your intentions, you, above all other Athenians. Now, suppose I ask, why me and not someone else? They will rightly respond that I, above all others, have acknowledged the agreement. There is clear evidence, they will say, Socrates, that you are not displeased with us in the city. Among all Athenians, you have been the most constant resident in the city, which suggests that you love it. Compare Fagor. You never left the city to attend the games, except once when you went to the Isthmus, or to any other place unless you were on military duty. You did not travel like other people, nor did you show any curiosity about other states or their laws. Your affections did not extend beyond us and our state. We were your special favorites, and you accepted our governance. You even had children in this city, which is evidence of your satisfaction. Moreover, during the trial, if you had wanted, you could have chosen banishment as the penalty. The state that now refuses to let you go would have allowed it then. But you claim that you preferred death to exile, compare Apol, and that you were not unwilling to die. And now you have forgotten these noble sentiments, and show no respect for us, the laws, whom you are destroying. Instead, you are doing what only a wretched slave would do, running away and disregarding the agreements and compacts you made as a citizen. First and foremost, answer this question: did you not agree to be governed by us in action, not just in words? Is that true or not? How should we answer, Crito? Must we not agree?
We have no choice, Socrates.
Then will they not say, you, Socrates, are breaking the covenants and agreements you made with us at your leisure, without any haste or compulsion or deception? After 70 years of thinking, during which time you were free to leave the city if we did not please you, or if our agreements seemed unfair, you had the choice. You could have gone to either Lacedaemon or Crete, both of which you often praised for their good governance, or to some other Greek or foreign state. Yet, above all other Athenians, you seem to have such fondness for the state, or in other words, for us and our laws, because who would care about a state without laws, that you never left her. You were more stationary in her than even people with disabilities, the blind, and the crippled. And now you run away and abandon your agreements. Not so, Socrates, if you heed our advice, do not make a fool of yourself by escaping from the city. Consider this: if you transgress and err in this way, what good will it do for you or your friends? It is almost certain that your friends will be exiled and stripped of their citizenship, or they will lose their property. And if you flee to one of the neighboring cities, such as Thebes or Megara, which are well governed, you will be seen as an enemy, Socrates, and their government will be against you. All patriotic citizens will view you with suspicion as someone who undermines the laws, and you will only confirm the judge's belief in your own guilt. For someone who corrupts the laws is likely to corrupt the young and foolish. Will you then flee from well-ordered cities and virtuous people? Is life worth having on those terms? Or will you go to them without shame and speak to them, Socrates? And what will you say? Will you repeat here what you say about virtue, justice, institutions, and laws being the best things among men? Would that be appropriate? Surely not. But if you go to Crito's friends in disorderly and lawless Thessaly, they will be delighted to hear the story of your prison escape, embellished with ridiculous details of how you were disguised in a goatskin or some other disguise, like any other runaway. But will no one remind you that in your old age, you were not ashamed to violate the most sacred laws out of a pitiful desire for a little more life? Perhaps not, if you keep them in a good mood. But if they are in a bad mood, you will hear many degrading things. You will live, but how? As a flatterer of all men and a servant to all men. And what will you be doing? Eating and drinking in Thessaly, having gone abroad just to get a meal. And where are your noble ideas about justice and virtue? If you claim to live for the sake of your children, wanting to raise and educate them, will you take them to Thessaly and strip them of Athenian citizenship? Is that the benefit you will give them? Or do you believe they will receive better care and education here if you are still alive but absent from them? Surely your friends will take care of them. Do you think that if you reside in Thessaly, they will take care of them, and if you reside in the afterlife, they will not take care of them? No, if those who call themselves friends are worth anything, they will certainly take care of them. Listen, then, Socrates, to us who have raised you. Do not prioritize life and children first, and justice afterwards, but prioritize justice first, so that you may be justified before the rulers of the underworld. Neither you nor those who belong to you will be happier, holier, or more just in this life or happier in the next if you do as Crito suggests. Now, you will depart as an innocent person, a sufferer and not a wrongdoer, a victim, not of the laws, but of men. But if you leave, repaying evil for evil, and harm for harm, breaking the agreements and promises you have made with us, and harming those whom you should least harm, namely yourself, your friends, your country, and us, we will be angry with you while you live, and our brethren, the laws in the underworld, will receive you as an enemy. They will know that you have done your best to destroy us. Listen, then, to us and not to Crito. This, dear Crito, is the voice that I seem to hear whispering in my ears, like the sound of a flute in the ears of the initiated. That voice, I say, is buzzing in my ears and prevents me from hearing anything else. And I know that anything else you may say will be in vain. But speak if you have anything to say.
I have nothing to say, Socrates.
Then leave me, Crito, to fulfill the will of God and to follow wherever he leads.
Epilogue. Benjamin Jowett's introduction has been moved to the following epilogue. The purpose of the Crito is to show Socrates in a different light, not as the philosopher fulfilling a divine mission, but as a good citizen who, despite being unjustly condemned, is willing to sacrifice his life in obedience to the laws of the state. Socrates is nearing the end of his days, as he is informed by his old friend Crito, who visits him before dawn. Socrates has also been warned in a dream that he must depart in 3 days. Time is of the essence, and Crito comes early to seek Socrates' consent for an escape plan. This plan can be easily executed by his friends, who will face no danger in attempting to save him. However, they will be forever disgraced if they allow him to perish. Crito argues that Socrates should consider his duty to his children and not play into the hands of his enemies. Money has already been provided by Crito, Simmias, and others, and Socrates will have no trouble finding friends in Thessaly and other places. Socrates is concerned that Crito is merely echoing the opinions of the majority, while he has always followed the dictates of reason and the opinions of wise and skilled individuals. There was a time when even Crito himself agreed with this. Socrates questions whether the many can kill them, asserting that a good life, a just and honorable life, is the only thing that matters. He dismisses any consideration of loss of reputation or harm to his children. The only question is whether it would be right for him to attempt an escape. Crito, as an impartial person not fearing death, is asked to answer this question. Before Socrates was condemned, they had often discussed and agreed that no one should do evil, return evil for evil, or betray what is right. Should these principles be abandoned because Socrates' circumstances have changed? Crito admits that the principles remain the same. Then, is his escape consistent with upholding these principles? Crito is unable or unwilling to answer. Socrates continues by imagining the laws of Athens coming to remonstrate with him. They would ask why he seeks to overturn them. If he replies that they have harmed him, the laws will counter by asking if that was part of the agreement. Do they have any objections that would justify overturning the laws? Wasn't Socrates brought into the world and educated with their help? Aren't they, his parents? He could have left Athens and gone wherever he pleased, but he chose to live there for 70 years, more consistently than any other citizen. This clearly shows that he acknowledged the agreement, and breaking it now would bring dishonor to himself and danger to his friends. Even during his trial, he could have proposed exile as the penalty, but he declared that he preferred death over exile. Socrates questions where he would go if he escaped. In any well-governed state, he would be considered an enemy by the laws. Perhaps in a lawless place like Thessaly, he may be initially welcomed, and his escape story may amuse the people. However, if he offends them, he will face consequences. Would it be appropriate for him to continue lecturing on virtue? And what would happen to his children if he took them to Thessaly and deprives them of Athenian citizenship? If he leaves them behind, does he expect his friends to take care of them better just because he is in Thessaly? True friends would care for them equally, whether they are alive or dead. Finally, the laws urge him to prioritize justice above all else, and then think about life and children. He can now depart in peace and innocence, as a sufferer and not as a wrongdoer. However, if he breaks agreements and returns evil for evil, they will be angry with him while he lives, and the laws of the underworld will see him as an enemy. This is the constant voice that echoes in his ears. During his lifetime, Socrates faced accusations of being a bad citizen, which were repeated in later ages. The crimes committed by his students Alcibiades, Critias, and Charmides were still fresh in the memory of the newly restored democracy. Socrates' neutrality during the struggle for Athens' survival did not help him win popular support. Plato, writing in the following generation, defends his friend and teacher not to the Athenians of his time, but to future generations and the world at large. It is uncertain whether the incident of Crito's visit and the proposal of escape happened. Plato could have easily invented more than that. In selecting Crito as the person to make the proposal, Plato showcases his artistic skill. The question of whether someone who has been unjustly judged by the laws of their country is justified in attempting to escape is a topic that casuists may disagree on. Shelley, for example, believes that Socrates did well to die, but not for the reasons Plato presents in his dialogue. It is also arguable that Socrates should have chosen to live and continue performing the good of which he was still capable. A rhetorician would have had much to say upon that point. However, it should be noted that Plato never intended to answer the question of casuistry, but only to showcase the ideal of patient virtue, which refuses to do any harm in order to avoid greater harm. He wanted to show his master, Socrates, maintaining his beliefs even in death. It is not about the world, but about the one wise man, which remains a paradox in Socrates' final hours. He must be guided by reason, even if it leads to his demise. The notable sentiment that the wicked can neither do good nor evil is true, when understood in the sense of moral evil. In Socrates' words, they cannot make a man wise or foolish. This dialogue is a perfect example of dialectic, where there is no escaping the conclusion once the common principle is granted. It is foreshadowed at the beginning by Socrates' dream and the parody of Homer. The personification of the laws, and their counterparts in the underworld, is one of the most noble and daring figures of speech in Plato's work. Translated by Benjamin Jowett. Modern English translation, ChatGPT 3.5. Facilitator and editor, Sir Adam S. Barnett.